Hello, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to Friday. Today is March the 17th. Right about now, in the middle of March, I start getting spring fever. How about you? Who all got tons and tons of snow last week? We did not, but it was cold. I almost wish if it was that cold, we would have something to show for it. But I know lots of people got lots of snow. How are y'all doing? Hi, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Today we are doing 2 clues. We're gonna do 2 clues instead of 1 this week. We're doing clue number 9 and clue number 10 of the mystery medallion quilt. Y'all, all the links are down in the description box down below. And if you've already looked at them, then you know clue number 9 is the same technique, the same stencils, just different fabrics, right? As clue number 4. I just finished up clue number 4 this week. I don't know about y'all. And let me just tell you, I think with every quilt that I do, every single quilt, I think is a lot of fun, right? But in every single quilt I do, I have my favorite parts of the quilt that I really enjoy making. Like, it's so much fun to do certain parts of that quilt. And inevitably, in every single quilt I've made, there's been one element of that quilt that I didn't enjoy doing as much as the rest of the quilt. I can't think of one quilt that wasn't like that for me. Clue number 9 and clue number 4 are those elements of this quilt. They're not the most fun part of making this quilt for me. But let me just tell you something, right? If you woke up this morning and you saw the clues for today and you're like, oh no, not again. Let me just this is a reminder for myself. Even the worst day spent at the sewing machine, or in my case, it's going to take a couple of days. Even my worst couple of days making clue number 9 is better than 1,000 good days doing laundry for me, right? It's just not my favorite part of making the mystery medallion quilt, clue number 9. Clue number 4 and clue number 9. But today I'm going to walk you through how I ended up finishing up a good chunk of clue number 4 as I'm making clue number 9 with you today, okay? So I kind of just developed a rhythm and a way of paper piecing these that kind of broke up the monotonous part of making so many of these units. Today I'm going to walk you through making 2 of them with you, and you might pick up something that is helpful for you. Robin said, I loved clue number 4, my first foundation paper piecing. Then you're going to love clue number 9. It's not been my favorite part of this clue. It's not been my favorite. Hello, everybody. Nope, we're not all settled in yet. We still have a few weeks before we close and move, so we'll still be here for a little while. Okay, so clue number 9, and then clue number 10 is an applique clue. So that part should go relatively quick for you. So I'm going to make 2 units of clue number 9 with you, and then we're going to switch over, and I'm going to do an applique portion of clue number 10 with you. So we're going to be here for a good little hour or so, and then we might hang out afterwards. Hi, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me. I also had, let's see, clues number 11 and 12. Yeah, I wanted to remind everybody, if you are on Creative Crew, y'all know Vicky, she's one of our awesome moderators here. Thank you to my moderators as we get started. Vicky is hosting a Zoom tomorrow on Creative Crew, starting at 2 p.m. in honor of National Quilting Day. So I will see you there. I'm not sure exactly what time I'll be there, but I'm going to come because I have a binding on a quilt to do, and I'll be doing some of clue number 9 tomorrow. So I'm going to come hang out with everybody, and yeah, if you want to come hang out with everybody, it would be great to see you. Okay, let's switch on over to the cutting mat. Here's some news. Here's clue number 9. If you are just joining in this quilt project, and perhaps you've only come in after clue number 4, right? Maybe you started joining in this week or last week. Go back to the video for clue number 4, because I go through actually piecing together the units as an alternative to foundation paper piecing. So if you don't want to do what I'm doing today, the paper piecing portion, video number 4 walks you through cutting the pieces and actually piecing this unit without doing paper piecing. We're not going to go through that today. All of that is in clue number 4's video. So what I am going to do is I already have my templates printed and cut. It's the same exact template as clue number 4. It's just different fabrics we're using. So if you don't want to reprint and recut out templates, you could just use the templates, if you have them, left from clue number 4. Okay? Just change out your fabrics. And in clue number 9, we are using A and C. So the darker of those two greens, right? A and C. And then for clue number 10, we're doing some applique. And we're bringing out the 4 original pieces we cut from clue number 1. We're working with those, and this is going to finish up these background pieces, okay? We're doing at the applique portion that goes right over top, and then these 4 units will be done. I don't want you to do anything with them past doing the applique yet. And just for those who are wondering, the fabric we're using for clue number 10 is B and E. And this will be the last clue that we are using any E fabric on. Okay? I used my my new scan and cut. It worked perfectly. Oh, it worked so perfect. Do you know what was the worst part of using my new scan and cut? Was the brand new mat. My old scan and cut, all the mats have been used. I have like 2 good mats that have never been used that I've just like kept as backups. But all my other mats have been well used and have barely any sticky to them. My new mat from my new machine is sticky, sticky, sticky. So I even pressed it to my shirt a couple times, right, to get some of the stick off. And the heat and bond paper still stuck to the mat. It was okay though. All I did was just soak it with water and let it sit for a few minutes, and then I could just, with my fingers, start to peel off the paper and revive the mat back to brand new. But I like my mats not brand new. I like them when they're not very sticky at all. Okay, y'all. Please, can you give the measurements? Sheila, I will, but they're the same exact measurements as clue number 4. Okay? Clue number 4. You might have to just revisit that video because I go through all of the measurements. What did I do with it? Hold on a second. There we go. If you are cutting and doing traditional piecing, just like patchwork piecing, no foundation paper piecing. All right? Probably one of the most efficient ways to cut your pieces would be to cut 4 strips from 42 or 44-inch fabric, right? 4 strips of the C fabric at 5 1/4 inches wide, and then rotate them and cut squares that are 5 1/4 inch wide, right? So you'll end up with 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 inch squares. And then you cut those on the diagonal 2 times. That's going to give you all of these triangles right here. And then this piece, you're going to want to cut 6 strips of the A fabric that measure 3 3/8 by 3 3/8. That's how big this A fabric square should be if you are piecing. And then if you're paper piecing, we're going to cut them a little bit bigger, right? So that you have some extra to work with. And so the C strips, you'll cut 5 strips at 6.5 inches wide. And then you'll rotate the strips and cut squares that are 6.5 by 6.5. Those squares you cut twice on the diagonal. That's going to give you 112 of these triangles right here. And then for your A pieces, I cut 6 strips that were 4 inches wide, rotated the strips, and cut those into squares. So this square, I started off at 4 by 4, 4 inches by 4 inches. And that gives us some extra to do the paper piecing and still trim up this unit nice and exact. Okay. Trinita, yes, except we're using different fabrics, right? We're using the A and the C fabrics. So there is one of my finished units, and that's what you're going for. Hi, everybody. Okay. I feel like I have a lot to do today. So we're going to just jump in. I know I've missed lots of questions. I have all of my pieces cut, but I am unsure my template is the right size. Okay, so clue number 4, we did measure the template, I think. Hold on a second. One way to check is, let's do, yeah, okay. Whoops, I'm using the wrong end of the ruler. Let's see, line to line is 8.5. So the long side of your triangle should measure 8.5 inches long. Okay, so that'll help you check to see if your template's the right size. All right, so what I'm going to do is you'll see, for this clue, I've been working in batches of 8. All right. So I printed off 8 of these templates and cut them to the line, the outside line, right? And then I pre-folded them. So I have 8, and I'm working in batches of 8 to get through this clue. Today, I'm just going to do 2 with you and just walk you through how I've been doing them, which seems to break up the monotony of doing so many of these, right? So I'm going to bring over a couple of these pieces that I've already cut, right? And I'm going to bring over these templates. And we're going to jump right over to the sewing machine. And we're going to stay right here as I do 2 of these units with you, okay? So let me move these rulers over. And I'm going to just set these little pieces of fabric off to the side. We're going to start with one of the paper foundations, and I usually have my stack of 8 templates there and a good healthy stack of these pieces right there. I have my glue stick right here, and I just go to town. And I went through half of clue number 4 pretty quickly like this, okay? So I have my straight stitch set. And I like to lower my stitch length to a 2.2. And we're ready to get started. Now, I like to glue my first piece to the back side. So all of the print, I just turn it right down so that it's facing down. And I bring in my glue stick. And I do 4 little dots of glue right in position number A. You'll see there's lots of glue on the back. I've already started sewing clue number 9. And then I'll bring in my fabric, and so my first fabric goes with the right side facing up. And I just center it right over top like that. We want to make sure we have fabric extending beyond these paper edges, right? It's hard to see because it's all blending in. There you go. And I'm just gonna finger press that. And then I turn it over and I fold this back and I'm just eyeballing it. Before I was like precisely using a ruler and cutting the extra to exactly 1/4 of an inch, but that was taking me forever. So I'm just gonna take my pair of scissors and eyeball it. And I'm gonna trim away any fabric to about 1/4 of an inch. See that? I'm going to turn it the other way and do the same thing. I'm just eyeballing it. It does not have to be exact, but we don't want all this extra fabric bulking up our pieces, right? So there we go. There's our piece. And I'm going to bring in my first triangle. You'll notice the shape is like this, right? The long side of that triangle is up at the top. And I just like to double check it like that. And then turn it over and match up those raw edges just like that. Pinching it, I'm going to grab it up like this and flip over that paper edge. And we're sewing right next to that seam. And if this is your first time watching and you're probably like, wow, that's really confusing. But I promise if you do it a couple times, it'll all make really good sense. So we sew that first seam, and I take it off, and then I'm going to flip it over, and in the position that that triangle covers, I'm just going to put a couple little dots of glue. And at this point, I'm just finger pressing, y'all. I'm going to just rub that fabric on the glue. All of this will come off down the road. And I just take my fingernail and score that seam so that it lays down a little bit flatter. See that? Now we're going to bring in the second triangle. And I like to just double check it, right? That's the shape. That's the shape. And then I flip it over. I match up the raw edges there, fold down that fabric, or excuse me, fold down that paper, right, and we sew right next to it. So you can see, you can get into a quick little rhythm, right? Just working right here at the machine. And I was going back and forth, and trimming and doing all of that stuff. And it was just taking me forever to go through. How many did we, I think we had to make 56 of these units, right? It was just taking me forever. And I would do a couple at a time and have to move on to something else. See how I'm just rubbing that seam with my fingernail? And it's laying down pretty flat, right? And then I just rub that fabric so that it stays there because we don't want that paper to move yet, right? We want that paper to stay exactly like that until we clean up all of the edges. So then I just take this and I move it off to the side and I start on the next one. So this one we're going to move pretty quickly through, right? A couple of dots of glue. Center that A fabric, just make sure we're going. Okay. And I'm just rubbing that fabric right on top of the glue. And then I'm going to flip it over and just eyeball that 1/4 inch. See that? We're doing both of them. We're going to flip it back over and we're adding our first triangle. So there we go. We're sewing right next to that paper, not on the paper. I was chain piecing several at a time, right? Going through and chain piecing all of that one seam, and I'd have a pile of 5 or 6 there. But because I'm not using heat on my paper, I found that 1 or 2 of the papers would move, being stacked up behind the machine. So I feel like I have a lot more control just doing them one at a time like this. And I don't have to worry about the paper coming loose off the fabric being piled all those pieces behind it, behind that sewing machine. Just rub that in there. Score that seam and bring in the last triangle. Flip that paper back over, just a couple little smidgens of glue, and press over that fabric. So if I were doing this off camera, not during the live, I would just keep going, and I'm working in batches of 8, right? Because I think if I go through the batches 7 times, that'll give me the 56 units that I need to do. So I'm working in batches of 8. But I end up having a big stack of 8 of these units just like this, right? And once I have the 8 units done at a time, that's when I bring them over and I clean them up, right? So I have a stack just like this, and I can bring over a ruler, and now's when we're going to cut away all of the extra fabric. My main thing that I pay attention to when I'm trimming off the extra fabric is that the 1/4 inch line on my ruler matches that inside black line, right? Because sometimes we trim away edges of the paper, right? And so if we match up the 1/4 inch line on the ruler to that line, then we're always giving ourselves an accurate 1/4 inch there, right? So I don't match it up to the edge of my paper. I match up the 1/4 inch line with that inside line. And then I go through and trim the 3 sides. I need to move up a little bit more so you can see better. There we go. So there's that one, and we'll go ahead and trim this one, and I'll have that done. Sheila said, I printed clue 4 8 times. 1 had the correct measurement. That is weird. That is really weird. You using the same settings every time? Okay, there we go. So I would just go through my stack of 8 and trim away, right? And you're going to have, that's the extra fabric that we added to the 2 pieces, right? But it does help us, give us a little wiggle room when doing the paper piecing. So there's my finished unit. It is exactly perfect. And then I just go through and lightly just pull at that paper. You'll even see the glue is still a little bit wet. That's okay. And there's my piece. And then I just stack them all up, and I do give them a good little press once they're off of the paper. I found out quite some time ago that if I use heat with my paper, with the paper still attached, that glue really bonds to the fabric. And what would happen is a lot of time when I would separate the paper off, a lot of the paper would end up staying on the back of my fabric, which is okay, right? But my paper templates last me a lot longer if I don't use any heat until after the unit is off. So now you could press those units, right? And my paper templates last a lot longer. Hi, everybody. Okay, so that is how I'm approaching clue number 9. And I've already, let's see, I'm about a quarter of the way through, but I do plan on hanging out with Vicky and everybody and probably working on a good majority of the ones I have left. Like there's my stack of A fabrics for the rest of this clue. So I still got quite a bit of sewing left to do. But I think working in the batches of 8 really helped me sort of break it up a little bit. And I think, you know, I'll sit down and I'll do 8 and then I can go do something else, right? And just knock out 8 at a time, 8 at a time. That seemed to help me move through finishing up clue number 4. And there is clue number 9, right? I'm going to set that off right back there. Okay, so let me get my iron heating up. There we go. It's hard to sit her in the cradle from this angle. Okay, so let me get rid of that. Get rid of that. And let's bring over clue number 10. I just have to reorganize myself a little bit. Here we go. Oh no, stuff falling everywhere. So clue number 10 is our last applique clue for this quilt. Okay, and we're going to finish up the 4 little blocks that go into the center of our quilt. And to do that, we have 2 applique pieces. Okay, so what I've done is I've given you, and you might, if you jumped on first thing this morning, as soon as I posted this clue, you might have a little typo right there. It says fabric C, but that's incorrect. So I did change it, and I might have just changed it in enough time so that when you print off clue number 10, it doesn't say any letter right there. It just says fabric. That was a typo that I took out, okay? So if you grabbed it before I made the change, that's a typo. We're not using fabric C. All right, so what I've done, just like the other clues, is I've given you a raw edge template page that you can print on heat and bond, steam a seam, freezer paper. Cut your piece to 8.5 by 11, and you can print all of your pieces right here on one page. And these have been mirror imaged if you are doing that, right? And then some of you are doing the turned edge. So I did give you 2 printable sheets for that as well. If you want to print your templates, you don't necessarily need all of them. You could just use one and make all your pieces. But I did multiply them and give you 2 printing pages for that too, for those of you who are doing turned edge applique. I also made an SVG, and several of you have already got it, and it has one of each of the shapes, right? It has this shape and it has this shape. And so you can work with those 2 shapes, duplicate them however many times you need to. But that is in my Etsy shop. And there's a link for that down in the description box if you have a cutting machine. All right, so what we're looking to do to get started is to actually grab this last page though. We're going to grab the last page, and you'll see I have just some scrap pieces of my phone book pages. Any kind of stabilizer would work wonderfully. Unfortunately, I did not have any time to do any parts of this glue in advance. So I'm going to do one with you here today. And the other 3 I'll have to finish up sometime this week, maybe. So let's bring in one. And you'll notice I have my light box because I think that that's really, or my light pad. I think that's really helpful, right? And this last page is going to help give you an exact placement for each one of your 4 blocks, right? So let's turn that on. I have a heat erasing pen, and we're just going to take our block, and you'll see it has the leaves right there in the stem. That's what we're really using to line up our pieces. So I don't know if you can see that through there. There's my leaf. There's my leaf. And you can use a window if you don't have a light pad. But that's going to help give us exact for each one of these blocks, right? So I'm just going to go through and give myself some registration marks to line up this piece. And we are doing layers. So the flower part will actually go underneath of the part that I'm tracing now. And I'm just tracing part of the design. You could trace the whole thing if that was helpful for you. If you're just going to wing it and you're eyeballing it, here's my suggestion for you, is pay really close attention to the outside edges of this block, because we don't want to place our applique within 1/4 of an inch away from the raw edges of this block. And let me just show you, right? We want to stay away from that edge by at least 1/4 of an inch. And we want to stay away from that edge by at least 1/4 of an inch. The reason being is when you sew these 4 blocks together, if you have your applique scooted too close to within that 1/4 of an inch, you're going to lose part of your design. So if for whatever reason you're not using this page to line up your pieces, just keep that in mind, okay? All right, so here's my pieces. I have them all perfectly cut from my Scan and Cut. And I'm going to pull one out. My pieces have Heat and Bond Light on the back side. Let's talk about my new Scan and Cut for a second, because yesterday was the first time I've actually cut out pieces that I was using in a project. And let me just tell you, my CM350, my first Scan and Cut, my first love of Scan and Cut machines, right, has a blade that you adjust the depth to, which I'd gotten really good at doing, right? And a lot of the times I knew, okay, if I'm cutting out this fabric, I need to set my blade at a 5. If I'm cutting this out with Heat and Bond on it, I'll set it at a 6. I have used the machine, I know the machine, and I've gotten pretty good at adjusting the depth of the blade and the pressure for whatever kind of fabric I was cutting. Well, one of the things is that does take a little bit of time, right? And so when I was cutting out all the previous pieces for this quilt, I used my Scan and Cut, but all of my fabric is flannel, which is considerably much thicker. I mean, can you see that? is considerably much thicker than the quilter's cotton that I'm using for the rest of my pieces. And so I didn't want to mess with moving and adjusting my blade. My new Scan and Cut has an auto blade. So it goes over and measures whatever you're cutting and automatically adjusts the blade depth each and every time. So there's all of that guesswork that's gone. And it cut out my flannel pieces perfectly. This is not using the rotary blade. This is just using the regular blade, the auto blade. And I am extremely happy with that. Look how clean the edges are. So even though I'm toying, you know, I do plan on buying a rotary blade. It cut the flannel out beautifully. All right, so we're going to go ahead and layer these two pieces. So this little E flower is going to go down first, right? And I'm just going to match up. Match it up, match it up. Nope, it was right the first time. There we go. Match it up just like that. And then this piece is going to go right over top. That is going to give you quite a bit of an extra bit of fabric underneath of this piece. And I think I want to eliminate that. So here's what I'm going to do, y'all. I'm going to line them up exactly where they need to go. And then with a heat erasing pen, I'm just going to give myself a line. See that? And now I can trim away some of this extra. You don't have to do that. But I'm going to just trim away some of it. See that? Just going to create a lot less bulk underneath. And let me just line everything back up. There we go. And now, once it's all lined up, now we can go ahead and just heat set that in place. Yeah, the auto blade, I was so impressed. I was like, we'll see how well this auto blade works. It works really good. I was super impressed. The first fabric I cut was this piece right here. And I knew that was not going to be a problem, right? But I was like, I wonder how it's going to do with the flannel. It did great. I was so impressed. All right, so we're going to let that just cool off. And I am going to go ahead, let's see, on these pieces I used this color thread. And on the little circles, I used the teal thread. So let's not break that cycle, even though it's tempting to use the same thread for everything, just to speed things up. I'm going to start with the teal fabric. I'm going to use a teal thread, and we're going to start right here and do a little blanket stitch all the way around, and we're going to stop right there. Then I'm going to swap out my threads, and I'll put this one in and do a blanket stitch over this shape right there. Heather said, moral of the story, don't question the scan and cut. Sheila said, how do we do it if we are hand sewing? Oh, see, Sheila, I don't, unfortunately, in a live, there's not, I mean, I guess I could stay here all day, couldn't I? There's so many different ways to do each one of these techniques. What I would do is whatever kind of hand sewing you want to do, I would go to YouTube and in the search box, type in hand stitch, blanket stitch. Or hand stitch, blanket stitch. What are all the different kinds of hand stitches? drawing a blank. Anyway, that's what I would do, Sheila. If you're hand stitching the pieces, I would fuse them both exactly just like this. I would create my layers just like this and fuse them in place. And then do my hand stitching, right? To trim everything I did exactly the same. The only difference is instead of bringing it to the sewing machine, now you're ready to start hand stitching. See what I'm saying? I would do everything exactly the same way. Just finishing it would be different, hand stitching versus machine stitching. All right. Okay, let's bring this over. I do have 2 pages of phone book paper I'm going to use. And I'm going to just throw that up underneath of there like that. Yep, if I were hand sewing, I create all my layers just like this. I'm doing a project, well, it's on pause for quite some time now, with Anitra. And it's a wool applique project. And even though wool is different than the flannel or the quilter's cotton, right? It's still all applique. And I have created all my layers and I'm ready to start stitching them one by one. Whenever I'm doing the stitching of the applique, I just remember the order in which the applique was layered though, right? So even if I was hand stitching, I would start with this piece here. And I would start where it meets the next piece above it and go right around. And when it gets to the piece above it, stop. And then you would sew the piece that's on top of it, right? You can change out whatever kind of stitch you're doing. You can change out the color, but I would still create your layers and then stitch everything down. Okay, so I have to swap out a bobbin. Luckily, I have saved my bobbins for this quilt right up top here. So I'm going to put the teal color in. And then just rethread the top of this machine. It might be, Sheila, that you're asking me something totally different and I'm not understanding your question too, because that happens a lot. All right, let me declutter. There we go. Okay. All right, so there's my thread in the top. And you see this little sticky note right here? I've kept it there. And these are the settings that I've been using for the applique portions. So let's say we do the zigzag stitch for the teal part of the flower. So a zigzag stitch, 2.2 for the width and a 0.8 for the length. And that's what we're going to do for this portion. If I were hand sewing, that's exactly where I would start. And we're just going to work our way through. I did want to zoom in just a little bit. Y'all hold on one second. Let's see if we can't zoom in just a little bit. There we go. Maybe you can see a little bit better. I'm hoping that I will have the ability in the new studio to hang a camera from the ceiling so that the view you see is not from an angle like this, but it's more of what I see. Wouldn't that be lovely? So that is stitching down the top bit of that flower, right? That goes by pretty quick. And then I think it's going to take longer to switch over the bobbin and the top thread than it actually takes to stitch that down. Now you'll be doing that 4 times, right? There's 4 of those flowers to stitch down this week. And then 4 of this other part that we're getting ready to do. But do you see why I said clue number 10 would probably go by pretty quick for a good majority of the people making this quilt? I know some of you are doing turned edge applique, some of you are hand sewing, and all of that takes much longer. And some of you are extremely new to sewing applique with your sewing machine. And so it takes you a little bit longer. But I think in the big scheme of things, we're sewing down 8 appliques. I think a majority of our time will probably be spent making clue number 9. All right. Let me get this thread on there. Sorry, my hand's in the way. Threading, threading. I could just use my needle threader, but sometimes it's just easier to do that. Okay, so I think for this portion, I do want to move over to my blanket stitch. So there's my settings right there on the screen. I'm going to change it to a blanket stitch. 1.8 for the width and a 1.8 for the length. It's going to be a pretty small blanket stitch. And you can see here I made a note that I'm going to adjust my top tension too to a -1 because for my machine the thread just seems to behave better evidently. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start right here, right there. So when we go over, we're going to cross over where this top piece overlaps that bottom piece. This is a really, really tiny blanket stitch. If you want your blanket stitch to be sort of a design part of your applique, you probably want to do a wider one. It is, however, wide enough to secure these pieces in place, and I feel confident washing and using this quilt that this blanket stitch would keep these pieces in place. Anytime I stop and pivot, make sure that needle is in the background fabric and not over in your applique fabric. All right, I'm going to pass just by 2 stitches the little starting point where I started. And if your machine does not have a thread cutter that ties and knots and cuts your thread on the back, then you'll probably want to pull everything away, right? Pull it away with your threads attached. Give yourself some room with your thread, and that top thread that's left with a needle, thread it to the back and tie off a little knot in the back just to secure those stitches, right? Okay, so you're going to do that 3 times with all your 8 applique pieces. And here's what she looks like all finished. I'm going to go ahead and take off the paper. Brenda said, I have never paper pieced before, so I would love to tell you I really love it. That's awesome. The pieces come out so true to size. Thanks for pushing me out of my cup. I am so glad you tried it. I am so glad you tried it. That makes me so happy. The pieces on the inside, I guess you could leave those there or take them out. I might remove the paper from the big piece and leave the paper from the little piece. You can see I have paper in all my pieces. But it does come out if you want to take the time to remove it, right? So there we are. That is the finished, one finished portion, right? And here's the other 3. So you can imagine when you put these together, let's just move this stuff out of the way. You can imagine when you put them, actually let's leave them here like that. They will come together like this. Like that. They'll kind of sort of form like a kaleidoscope, right? Won't that be pretty? So that section will be filled in with that. Won't that be pretty? Delia, you did it too, and you love it. I'm so glad. Mary Jo said, my taste has changed over the years. I used to use a wider stitch, but prefer it to recede more into the fabric now. Isn't that pretty? Yes. So what's really awesome is a lot of you have been posting pictures of your progress over on the Creative Crew. Isn't it fun to go through and to see all the different color schemes? A lot of people have changed out the colors. A good many of you are using the same exact fabrics I am. So it's like seeing my quilt posted throughout the day, which is really awesome. But I love seeing all the different colorways that y'all have picked. And if you are still on the fence, you want to do this quilt, you know you want to change up the colors and you haven't decided, Creative Crew is a great place just to open up the folders section of Creative Crew and just scroll through pictures. Some really awesome colorways people are using. Donna said, should we go ahead and sew the 4 squares together? All right, I'm going to tell you, Donna, you could. Nothing is going to be in between these pieces, and these 4 pieces are done. So if you get all the applique done, and you get clue number 9 all done, and you're looking for something to do, you could go ahead and sew these together. But you're just going to repeat. You'll just be sitting and listening, because at some point we're going to do this as a clue along with something else. Okay? But yes, these 4 blocks get sewn together. And so many of you had wondered, you know, about the orange peel and how we joined the 4 orange peel pieces together to form a block that has the 4 orange peels on it. And someone asked if they could just cut a solid piece of fabric and adhere the 4 pieces on one solid piece instead of doing the 4 pieces as a 4 patch. You could do this the same exact way. I believe that this center piece is going to measure 8.5 by 8, or no, sorry, 16.5 by 16.5. So you could cut a section out that's 16.5 by 16.5 square and line up all your pieces and have this as one panel or one block instead of coming together in 4 pieces. You could do that as well. Clue number 4 and clue number 9, I'm not going to talk about yet as far as what happens to those. We're going to try to retain some bit of mystery left. So clue number 4 and clue number 9, same exact process, same exact steps, just different fabrics. And I don't think I'm going to reveal exactly what you're doing with those yet. We're going to hang on to a little bit of mystery left as we approach it in the next week or so. Adele, yeah, you'll be able to find these videos forever. As long as I'm on YouTube, you'll be able to find the videos. So one thing you might want to do right now, just to let you know, is right now all of the patterns are free. But as soon as we're done with clue number 15, all of the patterns will be taken out of the description box and replaced with a link to buy the pattern in my Etsy shop. So you might want to start printing now while they're free. And then once we're done with clue number 15, the whole pattern is being grouped together and will go in the Etsy shop. But the videos will be up indefinitely. So whether you start it now or you wait till we're done, or even if you're watching like a year from now, you'll still be able to have the patterns and come back to each one of the videos to see how I put together the clue. So that's a great resource to have. Ooh, Ella said Kroger's has an 8-pack of NOS on sale for $9.99. I forget how much we buy them for at the commissary. It might be about that same price. That's a good deal. Because at the gas station down the street, I think he's charging like $3.50 a can now. So, yeah. Oh, so how are y'all all doing with your clues? Are you caught up? So Lisa, all of the SVGs, if you've been buying them separately, they're like $1.50. If you buy the pattern, they're going to be included in the pattern. So you won't buy them individually. You could still, but if you buy the pattern at the end, the SVGs are going to be included in that. Robin, you're all caught up. That's awesome. I was all caught up until this week, right? So I still have a good portion of clue number 9 to do now, and now I have 3 of these flowers to do. So I'm on track, but I'm not far behind. As of, what day was it I posted? Like Wednesday or Thursday? I was still doing clue number 4. Karen said, not even close. Vicky is all caught up until today. Zinka says, I'm 2 weeks behind, started a baby blanket and been doing that. Amy's caught up. Susan's caught up. You're going to get started with 9 and 10 this afternoon. Mary Jo's waiting until the end and figuring out how to make it smaller. Mary Jo, someone, and I forget who it was now, someone messaged me and said that they are printing all of their clues at 50%, and it's going to give them a much smaller quilt. Don't ask me how she's doing all of that, but that's what she's doing, and her quilt's going to be considerably much smaller in the end. I hope she shares pictures of it. Heather's all caught up. She's been doing Vicky Sooms that helps her stay on track. Hello, Sherry. Peg, right? The commissary is pretty awesome. It is. Donna, you're all caught up. Lisa, you're waiting until the end. That's awesome, y'all. That is awesome. So there we go, 9 and 10. And so what we've done is we've reduced the amount of weeks that this quilt is going to take up, which is kind of good. We've cut down the time by a week, pulling these 2 clues together this week. We are closing on this house on April 24th. So if we had stayed on track, doing the clues and not missing any weeks, we'd be here until April the 28th. Is that right? Yes. So I might double up a set of clues down the road as well, perhaps next week, because clue number 12 is also one of those clues that's going to go by really, really quick. So if we double up clue number 11 and 12, I don't think it would be too overwhelming, and we'd reduce by 1 week and perhaps get this quilt done before I have to break down this sewing machine. I think the long arm will be broken down by then, and most of everything you see behind me, but I could leave this up until the last minute. So we might double up next week too. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of a heads up. The home inspection went really good. you know, it's always really good to have the home inspections just so you are aware. Like, you just walk through the house and you don't see all the things and you don't know all the things and how things work. And it's someone coming in with a lot more experience than what you have, taking a good look at all of the components of the house, right? So what we have, like, nothing really out of the ordinary. Y'all remember when we had a home inspection on a house we had an offer on a while back, and we found out that there was like so much damage, so much to the point that it just really didn't make sense for us to purchase that house, right? Thank God for a home inspection. We didn't find out anything extremely alarming about our new house. We did find out things like we'll put together a list of things that we need to do, right? But nothing really alarming, nothing that really shocked us. Things that down the road, you know, small little projects, will touch this up and maybe change out this light cover, things like that, right? But nothing to where we're like, oh no, I think we need to keep looking for other houses. So that was awesome. I mean, here's the thing. The original part of the house we're buying is like 113 years old. There's gonna be, you know, and with the original floors, the windows have been updated, the siding's been updated, the roof has been updated, the kitchen's been updated, you know, some. But I mean, the overall bones of the house are like 113 years old. There's a little bit of settlement, and, you know, and we find that charming. So, but nothing to like alarm us or to make us reconsider. So we're still on track. Right? Isn't it a pretty house, Sheila? It really is. Oh, Brenda, your dogs are jealous. My cat has been on a mission in the last couple of days. I accidentally, so this past week, I was doing some quilting for some clients. I got to quilt some really awesome quilts this week. And the last one that I quilted, like day before yesterday, I accidentally forgot to take the top thread. You know, my machine, the long arm was threaded, and I left the thread there and walked away. Which I usually try to unthread all my stuff now, because he is on a mission to find threaded machines and take that thread and just run down the hallway with it. So I have thread going around the legs of my tables. So I accidentally left the thread in the long arm the other day, and then had a big mess of thread. And I also think that that's kind of dangerous for the cat with the threads, you know, if he swallows that. But I forgot. And so he's been on a mission since then, having his way with that thread. He has been so like determined to come in this room, and he goes from machine to machine looking for it. He's on a mission. I'm not going to let him win, though. I've been like diligently since then taking all the thread out. And but he still comes in and looks for it. Like, he'll go on to the long arm, to this machine, to the embroidery machine, right back there. Those three. And I also have a bobbin winder that's separate, that sits off to the side. He even goes to the bobbin winder to see if I have left thread in the bobbin winder. He's so funny. Heather said, will you set up a webcam and leave the machine threaded so we can watch him? I would, but I don't want him to eat the thread, Heather. I've read so many horror stories of people having to take their cats to the vet, or even their dogs, with the thread tying up something like their intestines or something. So it actually makes me kind of scared when I see that he's done that. But, so it's been one of the things I try not to let him do. But I could set up a webcam and just, y'all could watch him go from machine to machine all day long looking for it. He's just going to get frustrated because he's not going to find any. So yeah, that is it. That is all the news too that I have. We just continue packing, and that's really it. I feel like next week things are going to start slowing down for us, and I can continue to like really pack a lot more next week because my workload is slowing down, and every time I say that, then I get slammed with stuff. But oh my glory, $1,800 when my cat found a pin on the floor and swallowed it. That is so scary. Yeah, see, Sheila, I see lots of cats, and I hear stories that their cats never mess with their thread and stuff. This one particular cat, he is obsessed with it. My other one who can jump up here, she could care less. She sits right next to my threaded machine, and she doesn't even, it does not faze her. She doesn't mess with it at all. He comes in on a mission to specifically hunt out those threads. Oh, Beverly said surgery for thread removal is not cheap. Ask me how I know. I know. Oh, gosh. Are we done cutting with these two clues? Cutting fabric all together, Miss Mimsy? Let me just take a look. I think so. I think from here on out, we are assembling. Let me just double check that before I say yes. All right, next, clue 11 is assembling pieces that you've already made. So no cutting next with clue 11. Clue number 12 is assembling pieces you've already worked with. So is 13. So is 14. So is 15. So yes, good news. You're done cutting from the yardage after this week, right? After 9 and 10, whatever fabric you have left goes in your stash, unless you're like me and I bought a lot more of the dark teal to use as my back. But A, C, and E, and what other color? D. All of those fabrics, whatever you have left, that is extra fabric. We're done cutting from the yardage after 10. Clue number 10. Yeah, there you go. Hopefully you have enough in your stash. Wouldn't that be awesome? It really would be. So, yeah, in case you came in after we got started, Miss Vicky is holding a Zoom tomorrow on Creative Crew in honor of National Quilting Day, right? And it starts at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want to come hang out, I will be there. I'm not sure exactly what time, but I do plan on knocking out a good portion of clue number 9 tomorrow. If not a binding. I have a binding to put on a quilt that I really need to get done. So I'm not sure what exactly I'm working on tomorrow. but I do plan on coming to hang out. So thank you so much, Vicki, for hosting that for everybody. I hope y'all have so much fun. I'll see you there at some point. I think I'm going to go eat some lunch. I have some photos to press this afternoon. And as I'm closing out for today, and as we, closer and closer to when we pack up everything. If you have photos that you are wanting me to print for you, for your quilt projects and stuff, you might want to get them into me unless time is not an issue. Because at some point I'm going to be like packing up all of the sublimation stuff, the papers, the printers, and all of that stuff. And I won't have it available until after we're moved and settled. So if you're on the fence and you're thinking of adding photos and you wanted me to print them for you, the next 1 to 2 weeks, keep that time frame in your mind, because we will be taking that stuff out. Danielle said, what time does the Zoom end? I'm not sure. I don't know that it said. We'll wait to see if Vicki says an ending time for the Zoom. I am so hungry. I am so hungry. Last night we got chicken Philly subs, and I saved half of mine for lunch today. And since I woke up this morning, that's all I've been able to focus on. I can't wait to eat my sandwich. Okay, so Vicki says, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, however long she lasts. So there you go. It's up in the air. It's to be determined, but it should be a good long sewing day. And I posted her announcement in the featured section. And Vicki, I'm going to keep an eye out for your link. And so when you post that, I will replace your announcement with the Zoom link so that everyone should be able to find it easy. Okay? I'm going to do that tomorrow. All right, everybody, I'm off to eat half a sandwich and print some photos. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Post pictures of your progress on Creative Crew. And guess what, y'all? I just realized today I'm streaming live on a new internet. And it seems to have lasted really good. T-Mobile Home Internet. Anybody have it? Let me know in the comments section. All right, everybody.